Howdy, listeners. As we all know, planet Earth has 7.5 billion people, and 7.4 billion of those people have small businesses. Now, to be fair, numbers that size can be hard to envision, and to be even fairer, most of what I just said is entirely made up. But I'll tell you what isn't made up. Keap. Keap is the all-in-one client management software designed specifically for small businesses. Keap takes the most annoying and laborious parts of running a small business and metaphorically tosses them into the sun. Stop grinding yourself to death with busy work and repetitive tasks. Let Keap integrate your customer follow-ups, messaging automation, next-level appointment setting, and so much more. Head over to Keap.com and start your free trial of Keap Grow, Keap Pro, or for those looking for something beefier, talk to one of our coaches about Infusionsoft, the product that started it all. More business, less work, that's Keap. Just go to Keap.com to start your free trial. That's Keap.com. One more time, that's Keap.com.
Hi, this is Crystal.
And I'm Rob.
And this is Small Biz Buzz presented by Keap.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another edition of Small Biz Buzz. I'm your host, Rob Stevenson, and I'm joined today by my other host, or the other better host.
Sometimes, Crystal.
And today we're joined by a guest, the lovely and talented JT Benton, founder and CEO of WorkBook6. JT, thanks so much for coming today. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me, Crystal and Rob. Thrilled to be here.
Just for the record, it's Rob and Crystal.
Okay.
Unless you go by who's the best, and then it's Crystal and Rob.
That's not,
it just really depends on how you categorize.
Untrue. I actually want to jump back into a conversation we were having shortly before we started recording today about co-workers and friends in Disney movies. And we have a very interesting opinion. Crystal, please share us your opinion of Flounder from The Little Mermaid.
I just said Flounder is like an amazing sidekick because, you know, he was like, whatever you need. You want legs? I'm going to stay here in the sea. You go do what you need to do, but I'm here to support you.
So Flounder was the yellow and blue fish that was Ariel's friend the entire time.
Ariel's friend, bestie.
Thoughts, JT?
Yeah, would Flounder be analogous to like a non-animated movie space like Turtle from Entourage? Like just kind of the
Which one was Turtle?
The harmless, the chubby one who wasn't chubby at the end because he was a celebrity.
Jerry
now,
Ferrara.
So
no, he's in great shape, but he's he was the glue guy, the guy that just kind of did everything, and like if
that
you
could
needed
be similar.
See, I'm not sure I agree that Flounder is the best sidekick. He's not even the best sidekick in his own movie. Sebastian was like, look, here are the rules. Let's follow the rules. Okay, you didn't follow the rules and now you're in trouble. Let's get you out of trouble.
Well, this just goes to show the difference of you and I in general.
Sure.
You like the structure and that's why you kind of move us along here, which is nice. But I tend to like the support. Like no rules, the boundaries are off.
Sure.
Like let's just get supported and feel like we're going where we go. And that's what Flounder did.
Yes, that's what Flounder did. So that's a good point. And actually, it's a good segue into what we're going to talk about today. So JT, I mentioned before.
I'm not sure how, but I'm sure he'll make sure we get there.
He'll get there. Yeah.
As I mentioned before, JT Benton is joining us today. He's the founder and CEO of WorkBook6. And WorkBook6 is a strategic partnership marketing, I would call it agency, but that doesn't describe the expertise that exists inside the company. So I'll leave it to you, JT. Tell us a little bit about what WorkBook6 does, because from a small business perspective, it's like nothing I've ever seen before.
All right. Thank you. It's actually always a challenge to describe our business because, to your point, there are not many, if any, firms that I know of that do what we do, or at least do what we do in the same way that we do. The simplest way to put it is to say we power partnerships, right? We are all about creating really unique, lasting, and well-aligned strategic partnerships. And who we do that for has evolved a bit over time. The bigger picture and kind of the long-term picture of who we do that for or for whom we do that. Not sure the right way to say it. Rob will probably...
Luckily, it's a podcast, so no one really cares.
Sure.
So you can just do what feels natural.
All right. So the folks that we do this for are large U.S.-based, typically enterprises. And they are customer acquisition-minded firms, right? They sell a product or service that consumers use every day. We're in a bunch of categories. It was really important to me when we started the company that we be industry agnostic. And so we have clients that range from some of the largest retail organizations in the world, huge personal lines insurance carriers, platform insurance agencies that cover, multiple products across multiple regions and customer types and that sort of thing. Banks, lenders, mortgage companies, online marketplaces, basically any enterprise that's got a really scalable national offer, and they're looking to acquire more customers more profitably. That's who we represent. And what we do for them is we target strategic partnerships with entities that have a scalable source of new customers for them. Now, as we've done that, we've also grown to serve the other side of things, which is maybe a company's got a lot of customers, but their relationship with those customers is very finite. They sell a product or service, and they want to round out that offering and improve sort of relevancy across other categories. And so we'll recruit other products and services that they can market and sell and provide to their customers, either as a value-added benefit or as an additional expense.
That's super interesting. And I just want to proviso here. Before JT came in to talk to us today, he did indicate that unfortunately, due to NDAs, we can't name names.
Such a good friend there.
So we will dance around and we will not name names. In fact, he made Crystal and I sign an NDA, and then he made us sign each other's NDA, and then he made me sign mine again in blood. So we can't name names here, but for the record, we're talking about multi-billion-dollar multinational corporations. And what's fascinating to me is, how does a small business exist in that infrastructure? You talk about gigantic companies and the roles that they play. You talk about the shared common target audiences that they work towards. How on earth does somebody sit at home and think, you know what? I deserve to be in this space. I'm going to be in this space. I'm going to create a category so I can exist in this space.
I was actually really excited about this topic. I believe when I asked you, what are we talking about? And you slacked back what we're talking about. My first response was, ooh, I feel like this is like good to think about. And probably a lot of people are thinking about this, all you entrepreneurs out there. How do you kind of get by with all of these companies that are just huge?
Right.
Is there like an imposter sentiment at some point? Do you feel like, do I belong here? At what point are you sitting at home thinking, this is it, this is the plan?
It's a huge question. So let's break it into chunks. Right?
Well, it's a half-hour show, so let's break it down.
Yeah, let's break it into chunks. So the first thing is sort of origin story. I was doing some of this work for a business that's not a multi-billion-dollar enterprise, but served multi-billion-dollar enterprises. And I recognized a really interesting unit economic trend within the digital marketing space.
What's a unit economic trend?
So a unit economic trend, or the one that I specifically recognized in my prior role, I was the chief revenue officer for an insurance company. This particular company was a marketplace, and we represented the largest property and casualty carriers in the world, right? Or certainly in the United States. And our job was to sell their products and services. We were responsible for the cost and the investment to go acquire those customers, and we made our money based on the longevity of those customers, right? So if a customer bought an insurance policy from a major carrier through our sales organization, and they stayed there for 7 years, we recouped 7 years worth of commission, just like your normal insurance agent would. And what I recognized in that business was that it was becoming ever more difficult to scalably acquire customers online profitably. Mm-hmm.
And that's the heart of the unit economic crisis. What a customer's worth versus what you paid to acquire them.
Correct.
Thank you, Rob. Making sure I keep up to date here.
Yeah. So basically, what I was learning, or what I learned there, was that in order to scalably grow and profitably grow, we had to look well beyond Google and well beyond online lead marketplaces and
some of the more common demand gen techniques,
right.
Buying ads,
social media buys, et cetera. And so what I began to do was look at organizations that had a similar customer base but didn't buy an insurance product from their provider. So that could have been a home security company. Home security customers make a great home insurance customer.
That actually makes a ton of sense.
Right? Auto dealerships create thousands and thousands of auto insurance customers. And so
that is so interesting. You never think Ford, would totally make sense if they sold insurance. I know Tesla has started doing that in the marketplace because there are so many companies that are risk averse at the electric. But yeah, that's such a curious thing.
Right. So it is a curious thing, and it's hidden in plain sight. You see it every day, right? Everywhere you go, you see products and services that are inserted into the funnel or cross-sold that really originate elsewhere, right? The relationship between the companies that provide those is really interesting to me. I found that fascinating. It was a really cool hack to get around the expense of advertising on Google or Facebook or buying leads and that sort of thing. And so, I, in my prior role before I started this company, began to do some of this work, began to get pretty successful with it, mostly by necessity. Hadn't done a lot of it before, but I just had to help this business succeed.
And so was it an instance of working for the man, or were you creating a role, or how did that go?
Neither.
Okay.
So I was just trying to help one company solve a really big customer acquisition and monetization problem, because that was my job.
Yeah.
Started to get good at it, and started to hear from carriers, insurance carriers, that they were taking notice of the fact that we were actually kind of beating them to new business opportunities, and they were curious as to how that was happening.
So you were finding more customers more inexpensive. I don't want to use the word cheaply because we're not talking cheap here, but you're finding more customers more inexpensively than previous models. And all of a sudden, everyone's like, how?
Right. And more importantly, access to customers which displayed better longevity characteristics.
Okay, so the LTV is higher.
Right. So
LTV is long-term, lifetime value.
Lifetime value, that's right. And so for so many of our clients, kind of the North Star is the outcome of dividing the cost of acquiring a customer into the lifetime value, which gives you sort of a profitability outcome.
And that unit economic detail that we talked about.
Correct, right.
Excellent.
So,
okay, now it's making sense.
All right,
I hope everyone brought their calculators today.
Simple. Listen, I'm nobody's mathematician.
But to speak to simplicity, let's break it down. Like, let's pretend we were writing a Twitter feed right now.
Sure.
Let's summarize what you just said as like a hackable tweet for everyone listening, that something that changed your mind and really moved you forward to this business idea.
Sure. I was able to discover that strategic partnerships could deliver the right kinds of customers at better economics. It's a lot of work, and that many of the enterprises that we presently serve and will serve and have served don't have the kind of systems or personnel in place to go scalably approach those.
I love that.
And engage those.
See, that's why they invite me here, because on topics like this, it's over my head. So I can just be here to make sure that anyone out there is going to grab the morsel of nugget of information.
Yeah.
Because I think what you're also doing is really, you saw a trend, which I think sometimes small business, they get used to doing things the traditional way. And I love tradition. Like, you can ask anyone in my family, I love tradition. But I think what you noticed was a trend, and you were able to look at it from both the traditional and the trend mindset and really be ahead of a problem, which I think is something that small businesses really need to start getting a little bit more out there with trends and finding out how what they do will solve that problem.
Totally.
So I think that's really impressive, actually.
So I appreciate you saying that. What I would offer to piggyback on that is, to your original question, how does a small company, I mean, we started with two people, right, across a desk from each other, didn't raise any capital, have remained independent in that sense, and have turned down a lot of inquiries on that front, like to infuse capital into the business. The way that you do that is you figure out a really compelling problem and you start to solve it. And if you do that, big companies and small companies will want to work with you because they have a problem. And if you prove that you have a solution, or even that you have a point of view toward a solution, they'll invest.
We know we have you at the edge of your seat, but we're going to break and go to worst business ideas in history.
Howdy, folks. I'm Derek Haryu.
And I'm Ducey Van Dusen.
And this is Worst Business Ideas in History,
the show where we look back at some of the most brutal missteps, failures, and flops in consumer history.
and make fun of it.
But also learn something.
Nope, it says in my contract I don't have to learn.
Fine. The rest of us will learn something, and you can just mock people's misfortune.
Sounds good.
Welcome to the Worst Business Ideas in History.
Hey, everyone. Welcome again to Worst Business Ideas in History. I'm Derek Haryu.
And this is Ducey Van Dusen.
And today we're going to be talking about the DMC DeLorean.
This is the Back to the Future car.
Yeah, that's how most people know it, is the Back to the Future car. You tell somebody, you're like, oh, the DeLorean, and they go, I don't know what you're talking. You go, the Back to the Future car.
Ah, yeah. With the flux capacitor.
Yes.
And then the Mr. Fusion.
In the second one, yes, there was a Mr. Fusion.
But those weren't actually on the actual car.
No, they weren't. But fun fact, people that are in DeLorean clubs, which there are a lot of them apparently, routinely put a flux capacitor in them because they get bombarded by people asking about the flux capacitor.
Yeah,
so
right.
they just buy one off of like Think Geek or something. And
That makes sense.
so the DeLorean is just kind of like it's a weird cultural touchstone from the 80s. Like it's very, very rooted in the 80s. And there's a good reason for that. It only existed for 2 years in the 80s. The car was originally developed by John DeLorean, as that would make sense.
There we go.
And there's a lot of people that think they're like, oh, this weirdo like came out of nowhere and made this car. That's not true at all. The fact is, John DeLorean had been a designer and an engineer for GM for a very long time and was actually on track to be president of GM. Everybody had this guy slated to be the next in line to be president at GM. And he just straight up said, nope. He just bailed, took some time off, went and did his own thing, and like basically disappeared from public view for a while.
I also always heard as a out of nowhere story, and I figured he must have just gotten with people who knew how to make cars or something.
Oh
So,
no! This guy was absolutely legit. He's responsible for the GTO. He created the GTO,
okay.
And obviously did. He was with GM for a very long time, and he was kind of a rock star. He was sort of like a Steve Jobs of his day, like a brilliant mind, but very much like a rebel, as much as you could be a rebel in that time period.
Okay.
And so basically he's just like, I don't want to be president of GM. It's too structured. It's too old school. I won't get to do the kind of exciting designs that I want to do. So he just bailed and started coming up with his own ideas. And the one that he just absolutely locked on to was the DeLorean, creating his own car. Now,
Locked on to naming a car after himself, the one named after him.
Now, that's absolutely true. What you can definitely say about this guy is that he had confidence. You see him and he's just like, he's always in an impeccable suit. He's got like awesome hair for the 80s, meaning it's this huge helmet of dense hair. He married a supermodel who is like half his age, like after he left GM. Like the guy had no shortage of confidence. The marching orders that he gave for the car were, you can design it however you want, but it has to have a rear engine, and it has to be made of stainless steel, and it has to have gull wing doors. And those were his marching orders. And so after doing some research, he figured out that like the best way to start a car company from scratch was to go overseas, to go to Ireland specifically, and kind of leverage their tax laws.
I was going to say it's financial stuff, right? That's why a lot of people go to Ireland.
Oh, absolutely. Like he needed millions of dollars to start the company. I believe he even to open the doors on the factory, he needed something like $2 million in 1986. Oh, and a quick correction. I said 2 million. I actually meant 200 million.
Okay, I was going to say, my goodness, I was going to say 2 million does not sound right at all.
200 million to open the factory. So sorry, missed the decimal place by 2 spots. But regardless, and so
that seems like nothing to start a car company nowadays.
Yeah, no. It's like you're just like you can't buy a dealership for that much money. But he got lots of investors. He got Johnny Carson to invest. He got he actually got the country of Ireland, because they had like no job creation in the country at that time. They were absolutely starving for job creation. And so he's like, hey, I'll open a plant there. It'll be awesome. So he goes to open the plant. They literally move a mountain to make up for the landfill that he needed. They redivert 2 rivers. The plant opens, and then there's some minor production problems. The first production problem being that at the same time in Ireland, they were having the Troubles, which is the wars between the Protestants and the Catholics, like the IRA, like daily bombings, people going on hunger strikes, and it actually got so bad that at a certain point they had to build the production calendars around the projected deaths of people, of workers that were on hunger strike. Because it happened so routinely that they had to like just build it into their business model.
And on that note, this has been worst business ideas in history.
So there was that. They put it out, huge marketing push. They offered through Amex, you could actually put down a deposit on a gold-plated DeLorean. All the panels,
as if the stainless steel being mandated from on high wasn't enough. You could do a gold plate, like anywhere the steel. Is that what I should be picturing? Like the whole outside?
Yeah, every part of the stainless steel body would be gold plated in 24 karat gold, which meant that once you bought that thing, if you got so much as a nick in it, you had to send it back to the factory to be replated.
Just send it to the local paint job that does 24 karat coatings.
Right. So think about this: $85,000 for that particular vehicle in 1986. Now,
wow.
The car comes out. It looks great, but the problem is it looks like a sports car, but it's underpowered. The first batch of cars that were sent just were horrible productions. They were falling apart. People were having problems with the gull wing doors. The roof was leaking. There were just bad press from stem to stern.
I wonder how much of that had to do. Like, it sounds like he had some very specific ideas about what it needed to be. I'm wondering if those mandates of like rear engine and stainless steel that I know that makes it super heavy started to cause if those were design issues, that were just set from the beginning instead of worked through with the engineers.
Yeah, well, that's the other part is that the company was bleeding money, so they had to get this thing out immediately. Like they couldn't sit and prototype this for 5 years and then launch it. Like this car needed to hit the mainstream right away. So they eventually, by the end, they had produced about 7,000 cars. By the end, there was a total of 9,000, including the spare parts. Okay. So they put out 9,000 of these cars, and within the first year, 2,000 of them get returned to the dealerships.
Oh, man.
And here's the other part of this. The dealerships themselves, if you wanted to be a DeLorean dealer, you had to invest $25,000 in the company because they needed cash infusions and they were getting it from anywhere they could.
People think the pre-order on Teslas is weird. That is something.
So the company's bleeding money. There's bad reviews. The next thing to happen that is a real nail in the coffin is John DeLorean gets arrested. John DeLorean is arrested. He is filmed by the FBI trying to sell them a suitcase full of cocaine. I can't stress that enough. A suitcase full of cocaine.
This story is even more 80s than I thought it was when we started. This is fantastic. Unless
there's a bulldog riding a skateboard, it doesn't get more 80s than this. So he's selling cocaine in an attempt to infuse money into his car company. So he's arrested. It's a huge scandal. Then this other stuff starts coming out of he buys the most expensive house in New Jersey at that time in history. He bought the single most expensive piece of real estate in all of New Jersey, and he apparently did it using company money. So the company folds almost overnight to the point where a lot of people who owned DeLoreans would call into the customer service line and they just basically get
nothing.
Just an empty dial tone. So Eventually, he's actually found not guilty of cocaine trafficking, despite the fact that he's on camera selling a suitcase of cocaine. I can't stress that enough.
There's a whole story there somewhere.
Yeah. But he's cleared because they charged the FBI with entrapment, and he gets off, like basically, effectively scot-free. The DeLorean comes out in the movie Back to the Future, but by then...
So this is after it's closed. You can't buy a new one.
At the time that Back to the Future came out, the company was basically in the process of foreclosure.
Oh, man.
So it was too late. People, the word was out. People knew that there was this cool car, but like they couldn't overcome the bad press.
Yeah.
And within 2 years, the company opened and closed. And then after that, another company in Texas basically bought out all of the back stock of the parts. And the company that bought them out is actually the parent company that now owns Big Lots. And they bought all the leftover DeLorean parts for a song, and then went on to create this kind of sub business selling these parts to DeLorean collectors, which has turned out to be relatively lucrative.
Yeah.
So the question becomes, what can small business owners learn from this?
Yeah, you read my mind. I was going to say, okay, this is a wild story. Don't sell coke to the FBI. Beware of megalomaniacs. Mm-hmm. But how about some real... some real lessons?
Well, I think the first thing that we can take from this is you have to be ready to walk before you run. This was a case of like this person had an idea, he was passionate about it, and all of that is great, but he didn't take the time to properly grow his business. He wasn't patient enough to take the time, test the product, let it get to market, test it again, and be prepared to take some losses. And the other thing that this should be huge advocacy for is having working capital on hand. Because this guy was flying, John DeLorean was flying by the seat of his pants from the second he had the idea until the second the company closed. Just like trying to shuffle things around from A to B, getting money wherever he could to open this, to basically bring life into this dream of his.
Yeah, I think a lot of time, like if somebody is thinking of leaving their corporate job and starting a small business, or if you're running a small business, a lot of the advice out there is about not going into debt ever for anything. And I think there's some wisdom there, because if you get it in over your head with an idea that doesn't take off, that's obviously not great. However, it takes money to grow a business into something, right? So it's a slower, steady approach, and then also looking into your business and saying, okay, if I could have this one other employee, or if I could have this solution that would help me do X, Y, and Z, I could grow, but I can't afford it right now. I think it can be worthwhile to take some time and really evaluate your situation and say, can we get some capital in here to take care of these things and bring in the right people to actually grow the business beyond what it is? I think there's it gives you some breathing room and thinking room, so you're not running around all the time like Mr. DeLorean, just trying to make ends meet. If you have some brain room in your business to think on your business, and some weight off of your shoulders for just enough time to put those things into place that'll help you grow, that can be a very smart way to go about it.
Right. This has been Worst Business Ideas in History. I've been Derek Haryu.
This is Ducey Van Dusen.
And we'll talk to you next time.
Bye.
Keeping ever-expanding client info straight, sending the same emails hundreds of times, scheduling and rescheduling appointments over and over. Who enjoys this nonsense? No one, except my cousin Brent, and Brent is the absolute worst. Keap is the premier all-in-one CRM. Just head over to keap.com, that's Keap.com, and start your free trial today. Get the busy work out of the way so you can focus on what's important and make your small business grow with Keap. Start your free trial at Keap.com. That's Keap.com. More business, less work. That's Keap.
You talked a little bit before about how tradition is so important to a lot of small businesses, but one of the things that small businesses are famous for is solving problems first, being the first to discover a problem and then going to market and starting as a 1 and 2 person mom and pop shop, and then the next thing you know, it explodes.
Yeah.
The WorkBook6 story is fascinating to me, and it's got 2 very distinct components. The what, and that's crazy. We've talked about the unit economics. We've talked about solving problems and realizing and having a role kind of, and I don't want to use the term inside the machine, but I'm not smart enough to think of a better one. But you were in the industry. You were looking and seeing, and you were working for. Let's talk about the how. So you're married, couple kids, come home from work one day. Mrs. Benton, I'd like to sit you down for a second. I have an idea. So maybe take us to that point, and let's start talking about where the courage, where the gumption, where the
and hopefully like the support, because that's grueling.
Where did all of this come from? How does it exist?
Yeah, it's just such a, I mean, it's almost like an emotionally sort of driven response. And there's so much to unpack, but I'll keep it at a high level.
Half an hour podcast.
Yeah, no, I hear you. But you've asked a huge question. So
that is huge.
So the first kind of gumption to start a business and do it this way just comes from the way I was brought up. Mm-hmm. Both of my parents are entrepreneurs. They both kind of relish in quality of life and have made great trade-offs that I've seen pay off really well. Like, they're both brilliant people and could have been executives for big businesses and traveled the world, but they value time with family. I wasn't getting a lot of time with family in my last role. In fact, I lived in another city.
In a corporate world.
Yeah.
And I don't want to use corporate as like the big bad, but I'm using air quotes for corporate here.
Yeah. A venture-backed, high pressure, dynamic environment, competing with the big ones. And so the first thing was truly, like, I had a personal problem that I needed to solve. I didn't see my kids enough, and I didn't see my wife enough. I also really just kind of felt outside my skin. I was always really good at being an employee and an executive from an external validation point. Like, my reviews were great. Mm-hmm. I got raises. I was paid well. I was an executive way earlier than a lot of people that I went to school with and that sort of thing. And I was getting all that validation. But in terms of, like, did I like it? Was it in my DNA? I'm pretty individual, right? I'm pretty individualistic. I'm pretty unique in that way. And so feeling like I really needed to be in a place where I could kind of use that creativity and that way of thinking to kind of power my business, win, lose, or fail, right? Or win, lose, or draw, and own those consequences was really important to me. It all kind of came to a head, right? There was a really unique opportunity to exit and walk away from the business that I was serving as an executive. And something really needed to happen at home for me to be able to kind of make that transition. And so the biggest place that gumption and courage came from really was my wife, Jenny. Not from an entrepreneurial background. Mother was a teacher. Dad worked for big companies. Stability was something that, is something that she's, a big fan of.
Me too. That's like my favorite thing.
Yeah.
If something can be real stable, I'm happy.
Right. So if you ever meet a person like me, run, because I'm like the anti-stable.
I don't know. I think people like probably Jenny and myself, I think you almost start really appreciating that in others because you don't have the gumption. Like,
be a good podcast.
When I've talked with Clay,
significant other, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But I literally, when I talked to Clay here and he's talking about how he felt, I'm like thinking to myself, I've never felt like that a day in my life.
Yeah.
Like, never. But I love that he also had a problem he was trying to solve for. And I think, like, it's so cool to have that kind of purpose.
Yeah.
So I identify with your wife. I think that's cool. She was supportive. But I'm the same. I love stability.
Yeah. And so, the promise was, let me get us to stability. And in the process, I'm going to create a lot of chaos. Should last a year. Just hang tight.
Did it only last a year?
Oh,
I
God,
need to know
it
now.
lasted for so much longer than a year. I mean, it still persists, right?
Yeah.
The life of an entrepreneur is
Clay
never
says
stable.
It comes back, and every time you get to a new level, you're solving new problems and like getting to the chaos again. Right.
Now, bear in mind, we bootstrapped, right? And so
what's Bootstrapped?
Bootstrapped is to operate without the aid of external capital. Mm-hmm. So what that really means is the external capital was us.
Yeah.
Right. It was being very judicious with cash flows and also investing some of our personal savings and some more of our personal savings, and then what was left of our personal savings,
Right?
and then
Oh my gosh.
that sort of thing. And I can tell you, look, it could have gone the other way lots of times, but it didn't. Right? We kept kicking. We kept kind of winning on a bigger and bigger stage and impressing larger and larger companies and gaining larger and larger engagements to the point that we feel really good that we not only have a standalone business, but one that has some really kind of unique commercial traits that make it really valuable. But I think the most credit for that courage really goes to my partner Jenny, who my partner in life, Jenny, who was willing to be patient with me. And then my partner in business, Brett Kaufman, who Rob has met and knows, for being courageous to join me in that, right? Because he's a very talented guy. I think either one of us could have had great jobs as executives, many times over throughout the process of growing this, when things were lean and thin and scary. But you just got to keep kicking. If you really believe in what you're doing, you'll find a way.
Yeah,
you'll find a way.
Great.
For a lot of entrepreneurs, those with the entrepreneurial spirit, it lives and flows through them. It's their lifeblood, and they're the not the 8-hour days, the 10, the 12, the 16-hour days. They're the ones that turn the lights on in the morning, that turn them off at night. How do you cope with that? How do you turn JT off after a long day? How do you relax it and find peace in a world that can not always be peaceful?
Yeah, it's a good question. The short answer is I'm only kind of good at it, right? And anybody who tells you that, I just leave work at the office and then I go home and, I hug my kids and do yoga and do whatever. Like, that's not real. I don't believe them. I don't believe that there's like this work-life separation. I think we have lives, and our work is a really meaningful part of it. I worked really, really hard when I worked for other people, when I worked for other companies, because I sincerely care. I totally care. Can we cuss on this?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I totally give. Right? Like my name's
Oh, you can't
attached
say
to it.
that one.
Okay. Like I am.
Gosh.
There's 7 words you can't say.
Damn it.
That's fine.
That's 2.
Please go on with your profound answer.
Awesome.
Also, when I said, what do you do to relax? I was thinking like fishing, but this is a good story. This is a much better story.
Right. So yes, I fish a lot. Right.
A lot. JT brings a boat to work 3 out of 5 days.
Is that a bout or a boat? Like a literal boat.
Canadian
and
hazing. I get it.
JT's
Yeah.
like, oh,
I'm not quite sure
by
which
the way,
it was. I'm being serious.
By the way, it's lunchtime. Who wants to go fishing?
Right.
It's like, okay, let's go fishing.
So I do fish a lot, and I would say, if you really, if you think about the business that we're in and the work that we do, which is finding targets for our clients, finding out how they like to be communicated, where they interact, and how best to engage them. That sounds a lot like fishing, just in a corporate partnership world.
Ooh.
Yeah, so
Look
like
at that
that's
tie back.
Allegories.
Yeah.
Ooh.
He's good, guys. Watch
He
your
is-
wallets.
He's good. He's good.
But you can't always go fishing, right? So we live in the desert. It's ours to do that, and it's a pretty good way to alienate yourself from your family if you do it too much. So
Just
be with family.
Scott Peterson. Just kidding.
Yeah. Wow.
Sorry, bad joke.
Holy
Too much true
cow.
crime this week.
Wow.
Too much true crime.
Yeah. So what I would say is
It does bring it back to the flounder reference earlier, but
Accidentally.
it does. What I would say is for everybody, it's different. Like for me, I get better by helping other people. So I try to coach my kids' sports teams. I try to engage with other entrepreneurs who are either earlier in their mission or they're struggling with something
That's
kind of
great.
later in their mission. And that gives me the opportunity to kind of think in different ways. Sleep's really important. I don't work late at night ever. If I
Wow.
can avoid it.
Disciplined.
Yeah, my partner Brett works all hours, right? He's
does,
constant. And that's his release. For me, I just find that the quality of my work really dwindles after I kind of reach an exhaustion point. I try to do something physically active, but not at the gym. Like mow the lawn.
That's
or
great.
like I'll go like work on, something at the house to just get out of my screens, right? A little bit. And I just try to remind myself that progress takes time, that urgency is important, but so is patience.
So we're getting ready to wrap up here, but I want to ask, I know it goes quick,
so
right?
Fast, yeah.
It goes quick, probably because we hardly let you finish a sentence, but I hope you felt like you got some stuff out.
I did,
but what I want to end with is if you had really one tip for how a small business can make it with these huge conglomerates and huge companies, what would be your tip to kind of get them motivated and keep going?
Sure. Well, the first thing you have to do is you have to understand their problems. You have to develop empathy. So my one tip.
Can a $1 billion company have empathy? Or do I have to have empathy in order to understand their problems?
You have to have empathy for them.
I see.
Curiosity creates empathy. Empathy is a thing that you have after you understand. So develop a real curiosity and then deploy that curiosity with a willing partner on the other side.
That's great.
Before you try to sell anything, just try to learn, right? Just listen.
I love
Ask
that.
questions.
It's so important.
Yeah.
Well, you guys heard it here first. Curiosity builds empathy.
Yeah, it creates empathy.
Creates empathy from JT Benton. Thank you for being here.
Curiosity Creates Empathy was the name of my high school bagpipe band.
Good.
Yeah, so
Good way to bring it in.
No, it was. Curiosity Creates Empathy.
good.
Yeah.
Yes.
We free hugs after each performance.
100%. Who wouldn't after a bagpipe performance? Anyways, thank you so much, JT, for being here. We really appreciate your time, and we hope everyone's listening and got some good nuggets out of that.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to Small Biz Buzz. Please take a second to subscribe to the show and leave a 5-star rating. It helps keep the show going. And if you need a hand with growing your small business, head over to Keap.com. That's Keap.com and get started. More business, less work. That's Keap.